Chanuch lenar. The Al-Sheikh on this pasuk makes the point that there's a window of opportunity here. You have to machanech, you have to give this sort of education to your kid before they're really rooted in any particular path of life. And the research kind of bears this out also. I mean, something, taking one example. There's a small window up until age 4 or 5 of being able to socialize kids. You kind of look at, especially like 2-year-olds. I mean, like, man, those critters, I think the most violent age is 2-year-olds. And the only reason why we're not terrified of them is because they're little kids. I mean, they're cute. But you just imagine, the sort of temper tantrums that 2-year-olds throw. Can you imagine an adult behaving the same way? Well, that's actually called antisocial disorder. That's actually called borderline personality disorder. And what the research seems to bear out is that you have this window of opportunity to socialize your kids, to kind of curb those sort of anger tendencies, those sort of tantrums. How you do it. All the classic things of having a stable home and all that. I mean, that is important. But one thing that has been shown to be incredibly effective is, dad. Dad is super important when it comes to curbing anger. One part of this is roughhousing. Pushing around, wrestling, rough and tumble play. That is super important in as far as socializing kids. And for me, and in our home, every Friday night, after the Shabbos meal, all my kids, I got we had a fourth baby just born here 6 months ago, but all 3 of my kids, my 11-year-old, my 5-year-old, my 2-year-old, we all move the table, have this wide open space, and we're just wrestling. So what do you do when you're wrestling as a parent with these kids? And they love it. Even this is something so fundamental. Every mammal loves wrestling. I mean, like dogs love wrestling. Mice love wrestling. Every creature really, loves wrestling. And people are no different. Well, what's going on with wrestling? It's worth looking at when you see like almost every maybe not reptiles so much, but almost every living creature really loves wrestling. There must be something to it that's helpful. So what it seems to be, and as far as socializing, is teaching kids the difference between being hurt and playing. It's the difference between fun and danger, and it's something worth really thinking about. What makes something fun? It's a little dangerous. That's not so dangerous. But fun has a little bit of danger, a little bit of novelty, a little bit of the unknown. And it's worth teaching kids how to be able to discriminate, to tell the difference between fun and danger, because you don't want your kids going too far when wanting to have a good time. They need to know that there's limits. So when someone gets hurt, sometimes my kids are just pulling on my ear, like, ow, like you got to stop that. That's going too far. So part of the play is, you dads out there, you guys are really demonstrating with your body. You're showing moral conduct. What is it to hurt somebody? So don't do that. Don't pull daddy's ear. That was one part of it. Another part of this sort of roughhousing is it's one way of defragilizing kids. It's a big problem nowadays, especially in the United States. The research that's coming out is, we all love our kids. We all want them to be safe. And that's being a good parent. But what's coming out in the research is there is such a thing as having your kids be too safe. In the seminaries and yeshivas I teach at, I like asking the kids, at what age were they when they were first allowed to go outside without adult supervision? So for my age, when I was a kid, for my generation, it was 6 years old. And that was the national average in the United States. Today it's 16. and it's pushing 17 now. Can you imagine the first time a kid goes out alone, unsupervised by any adult? Well, that, those kids are sure going to be safe, but maybe they're going to be sterile safe. They don't, in a physical way, their physical immune system is kind of damaged. A good metaphor for this is, say, peanut allergies. I thought this was really nuts. No pun intended. They're legumes, not really nuts. But it used to be in the States that, when you kind of notice, mom loves her Bamba, she's eating peanut butter, whatever it is, and you start noticing, kids when they're nursing, they're getting a rash around their mouth. Well, okay, you stop having peanuts in your diet, mom. It looks like your kid has a peanut allergy. So it used to be that was the medical advice. Stop eating peanuts. Well, what they found was, it's kind of odd when you look at Israel. Bamba is a staple. I mean, I can't imagine not giving Bamba to a kid. It's unheard of. It's starting to now more with the American daycare here. It was a couple of years ago, the Gannett had said there was a kid who had a peanut allergy, so no one could bring peanut butter. That was a rough year for my kids. That was rough. But you don't really have that so much. And so here, just for whatever, wow, what's going on here? For whatever reason, Israeli kids have, there's less prevalent of peanut allergies. So what happened was, the research bore out, well, what happens if you stop suggesting to these mothers? What if you stop telling them, we don't have peanuts? We'll see what happens. Well, it turned out that, if you take the pool of all people who would be susceptible to peanut allergies, well, if you tell mom to come off the peanuts, 20% of those people are going to go on to developing a life-threatening allergy. You're condemning these poor kids, these poor people, to carry around an EpiPen for the rest of their lives. That. How many thousands of dollars does it cost for one of those? Just one of those. But if you don't, and if you have mom continue to eat peanuts, what happens? Only 1% end up developing a peanut allergy. And the metaphor holds true here, that it's worth putting some thought in how you can defragilize your kids. So when you're doing rough and tumble play, it kind of hurts. Sometimes people get hurt. Sometimes people get a bloody nose. Sometimes, on accident, they hit their face on the floor. Sometimes they get scratched. And by kind of being willing to feel a little pain, well, it doesn't just toughen you up, but it's more than that. It's that you kind of get a feel in your body. Well, sometimes you do get hurt, and that's no reason to stop playing. More than that, on a moral level, that's no reason to take revenge. You get hurt playing, you don't hit the other kid back. You keep playing. It was an accident. So it defragilizes kids. It also, rough play, especially when you have a lot of kids, you develop teamwork. I mentioned, 3 of my kids here every Friday, we're all wrestling around. So my oldest one, she's the brave one. She kind of organizes everybody and strategizes with my son and my 2-year-old daughter. And, then they attack. And, my son, he's just wild like you wouldn't believe. So he's literally jumping in the air on top of me. And my daughter's, grabbed me on the leg, and she's trying to, really figure what's the right angle to come at me with. And then my daughter, once my son's distracted me jumping on me, and my daughter's got me in a nice arm lock. Well, here comes my 2-year-old daughter, and she's just sits on my head, last week she there was a book on the couch. She just reaches over, she's sitting on my head, and she's looking at a book. But they're all working together. You only get the idea behind this is you only get so far instructing kids verbally how to work as a team. But it's something that your whole being has to learn how to do. You need to have it in your body that you just know how to work with others. Another aspect of socializing, again with dad, the research comes out that dads are, whether or not dads realize it, super important when it comes to showing kids how to manage negative emotions. The research that Gottman's done has shown that when it comes to being able to process, to actually label and process anger and sadness, real negative emotions, it's really dad that has the strongest influence on being able to be a good model of how to deal with negative emotions. And again, there's some one way of kind of looking at this is, like I said before, with personality types. Well, mom is usually more agreeable. Mom's usually more giving. Mom's usually more empathic. Mom is putting herself out there, trying not to show her kids the negative emotions she's definitely having. Well, dad's not like that at all. Men are disagreeable. That's why 90% of people in prisons are male. That just happens to be a strong personality trait. And it's that disagreeableness that dads demonstrate to their kids of, well, this is how you are. This is the best way to be disagreeable. You don't just lose your temper. You don't just break down. You have to be able to learn how to hold negative feelings in a way where you're able to manage yourself. And that really comes from dad.